Greetings, travelers. Welcome back to the Fractured Alterac Valley Wild review, this time for Rogue. So the theme of Rogue in this set is Burgle Rogue. Burgle Rogue has always been a fun meme in Wild, if not competitive. It's a thing where the Burgle archetype in general has always been mostly defined by the strength of the cards that it generates and not the strength of the cards that you're playing, which is kind of unfortunate. So I would expect these cards to have a lot of upfront value or generate a lot of tempo in order for them to be good, but let's take a closer look and see how it shakes out. First up is Contraband Stash. 5 mana spell, replay 5 cards from other classes that you've played this game. You're probably not playing this on curve. Usually a Burgle style deck is going to start generating cards with like Swashbuckler on 1, things like Henchclan Burglar, starting around turn 3, turn 4, like Blink Fox, stuff like that. So you're not really going to get an opportunity to play 5 cards by turn 5, so not an uncurved play. By the time you've played that many cards though, like there will be a point starting around probably turn 6, 7, 8, where this card starts to look a lot juicier. And in that context, it's a lot like Test Greatmane. Having extra redundancy on Test seems good in that context, but again, it suffers from the Burgle problem of if you get good cards, then you have a good outcome. If you get bad cards, you don't. So yeah, we're going to call this one C tier. Next is Double Agent, 3 mana 3/3, Battle Cry. If you're holding a card from another class, summon a copy of this. So this card, compared to most Burgle cards, is actually pretty sweet because it doesn't really matter what card you've generated, you have the minion that gets the effect. It's kind of like Vendetta or Underbelly Fence or something like that, right? Is this card strong enough to make up for the fact that you're randomly generating garbage? I mean, you could play this in the Spectral Cutlass deck and it not be that embarrassing. Spectral Cutlass is occasionally like fringe playable. And pretty fun too. Like this card's not bad. It's not meta breaking or anything, but it's not bad. I kind of want to put it in B tier, but I think it's responsible to put it in C tier. Wild Paw Knoll, 5 mana 4/5 rush, costs 1 less for each card that you've added to your hand from another class. It gets cheaper throughout the game. If you start to generate cards starting on turn 1, you can start to cheat this out for not very much starting around turn 4, turn 5. It's a little slow, but what it does is pretty good. There's a trick with Maestro the Masquerade where if you're a different class and you've drawn a bunch of rogue cards, then this thing is already like starts out as a 0 mana minion. So I don't know if that trick is good enough to be Wild playable, but it is pretty silly. We'll put this one C tier. Next is Reconnaissance, 2 mana, discover a Death Rattle minion from another class. It costs 2 less. So this is Primordial Glyph for Death Rattles. Primordial Glyph was a pretty good card in the context of its original environment, decent enough now. Unlike Primordial Glyph where it had a bunch of obvious homes, this one doesn't really have any home. There are also a lot of bad Death Rattle minions that you can fetch up with this. The Death Rattle pool is even worse than Mage Spells, which is not even really that great, so it's an okay card. We'll go ahead and C tier this one too. Next is Cold Tooth Yeti, 3 mana 1/5, combo, gain 3 attack. This is pack filler, D tier. Now we're looking at the Lobotomizer, 2 mana 2/2 weapon, honorable kill, get a copy of the top card of your opponent's deck. I'm a little sad that you don't get to outright steal it. They probably tested that, but it probably just felt really bad. You get to know what the top card of your opponent's deck is, you get a copy of it. Your opponent's probably still going to beat you upside the head with it. It's a really underwhelming weapon. We'll call this one D tier. Next is Serathan Fleetrunner, 5 mana 5/5, Battle Cry, replace your minions in hand and deck with the ones from other classes, they cost 2 less. So this is Deck of Lunacy on a stick with minions instead of spells, except Deck of Lunacy always gave you, like you could kind of fix power of what you were getting out of Deck of Lunacy, because Deck of Lunacy always gave you more expensive things than the cards that were initially in your deck. This time you're just getting a bunch of random garbage. Even if the random garbage costs 2 less, usually on average, it's probably not going to make up for the fact that the cards you get are underwhelming to begin with. Obvious meme card. Next is Forsaken Lieutenant, 2 mana 2/2 stealth. After you play a Death Rattle minion, it becomes a 2/2 copy of that minion with Rush. So it's an interesting Death Rattle support card, but it gives you redundancy on the Death Rattles. It can also set up to be used as light removal, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it clearly works with minion summoning Death Rattles like Burning Blade Acolyte or Silver Vanguard, Kobold Illusionist, stuff like that. Somebody's going to think it's a good idea to play this alongside Jade Swarmer. It's not a good idea, but someone will think that. I think you can make this card work in like that big style rogue deck. It has potential. It's a neat card. We'll call this one B tier. Snowfall Graveyard is 3 mana, your death rattles trigger twice, last 3 turns. This card's probably one of the stronger objective cards we've seen so far, because it's pretty easy to set up and has a relatively immediate effect, right? Like, if you have death rattle minions that are relatively sticky or high value, your opponent doesn't want to kill them at first, you play this, you get your trades, you get to start reaping value. The following turns you start to play more death rattles, and you can keep accruing extra value. Like, it's a pretty high potential card, especially in the kind of deck that's playing like Cobalt Illusionist and Silver Vanguard and stuff like that, so it seems like it has a purpose. It might be a little win more, is in the deck that you would use this in, it's going to be redundant because if your death rattles trigger even once, you're probably winning a lot of the time anyway. In other words, it means it's probably more of a corner case card than anything else. I think in the B tier this card, I kind of have a soft spot for it. Finally, Shadowcrafter Scabbs. 7 mana hero. Battlecry, return all minions to their owner's hands. Summon 2 4/2 shadows with stealth. Rogue once upon a time had Vanish in core set, which was 6 mana of half of this Battlecry. For 7 mana, you get that Battlecry plus the 2 4/2 stealths, which seems pretty sick value. It's a board reset high tempo card, probably very strong. That's not even looking at the hero power. Hero power is 0 mana, the next card you play costs 2 less. The hero power is Preparation. That is kind of nuts. After Scabbs, you have access to easy combo activators, tons of mana cheat. This card has an insane amount of potential. You're not playing it like Odd Rogue, Kingsbane Rogue. You're probably not playing it in Pillager. There are the Edwin tempo decks or the Octobot decks that probably love this card. And those decks are pretty respectable. We've seen some players reach some pretty high ranks with those decks, so I wouldn't be surprised if this card sees play in a deck like that. Also, this card's pretty exciting. I like it a lot. We're going to A tier this one. Alright, so that's it for Rogue. I think a lot of the Burgle cards are going to fall flat. A lot of C tier at best stuff. Forsaken Lieutenant might have potential. Snowfall Graveyard is probably more of a meme. I'm being really nice for that one. Scabbs, I think, is probably a sleeper. It's a very strong card that already has a potential home and might inspire cards to fit in around it. If there's a standard deck that it revolves around Scabbs, there's probably a wild version that can be ported that's probably not that bad. Probably not that good in the context of like Pirate Warrior and Odd Hunter, but maybe one day we'll evolve beyond that, who knows? Anyway, that's it for Rogue. Next class up is Shaman. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you there.